Well, 200 miles in and this is not the same shoe. Well, technically, yes, it is the same shoe, but it certainly doesn't feel the same. And after 200 miles, I've got to be honest with you, I'm a little bit disappointed with how this thing is feeling. It's definitely not held up as well as the previous original version of the NOVABLAST, and I'm going to say it, even version 2. But it's not all doom and gloom. I did 75 minutes moderate in this shoe today to take me over the 200 mile mark, and it did do really well. I've been using it a lot, and I'm excited to give you guys a long-term 200 mile update on the Asics NOVABLAST 5. Now, I did give you a little sneak peek as to what was going on with this shoe a few videos back when I did a big collection of longer term shoe reviews. I'm going to go into more detail with that today. There are a couple of things that I've massively noticed have changed in this shoe over the last 100 miles. But with all long term shoe reviews, what we'll be doing is going through the wear and tear, how I've been using them, and then of course if I will continue using them moving forward. So without further ado, let's dive in to the wear and tear. So I'll start off by saying the thing that usually happens in a NOVABLAST for me, which is holes appearing in the heel, is not appearing in this version 5. So whether they've changed anything there, I don't know, but that's something that's happened in every single version that I've tested. But overall, it's holding up really well in terms of the construction of the shoe. As you can see, there are absolutely no snags, no frays, no tears whatsoever. Everything is still feeling extremely comfortable, and that lockdown that I enjoyed so much when I first laced this shoe up is still there. Visually, the midsole is a little bit creased, but again, it's still looking in good condition, albeit a little bit muddy, but that's fine. That's just showing that it is well worn. And otherwise, it's looking really good in that condition. And once again, on the outsole, you can visually see that there is barely any area on those outsole bits of rubber, that there is no wear on those either. In general, after 200 miles, I've got to say, visually, it looks to be doing really well. But visual doesn't tell the whole story. Performance is another aspect of it. And the two things that have really kind of degraded over the last 100 miles is definitely the midsole and the outsole. We'll go into more detail of that shortly, but the performance and the bounce of the midsole that I loved and was so happy and delighted with when I laced this shoe up for the first time and enjoyed throughout the first 100 miles has definitely disappeared. It's certainly not as bouncy as it was. And in terms of the grip on the outsole, you guys mentioned to me, you said, Andy, I'm having grip almost straight away in this shoe, grip issues, sorry, and it's not something I experienced. The NOVABLAST has kind of been renowned for not having the best grip, and I have honestly never suffered with that in any of the versions. A couple of them were a little bit sketchy here and there, but overall I never found the issues that you guys had mentioned. However, I will say now, in the last 100 miles, and especially in today's run, I really noticed that the grip had tailed off. It was a little bit slick on some of those wetter areas, and although visually it looks okay, I have noticed again a decrease in performance in that outsole. But I'll share a little bit more on that shortly. Let me tell you how I've been using this shoe, because I don't want to make this all doom and gloom. It still very much is my go-to shoe at the moment. I'm loving it. I always have loved the NOVABLAST series. I think the version 4 was the only one I was a little bit disappointed with, more so than any of the others. 3 was a bit of a shock and just a change of direction, but 1 and 2 were just some of my favourite. And I've got to be honest with you, the fit and the lockdown and the feel of this really took me back to sort of version 1 and version 2 era. I was so excited, and it still feels great. I love the lockdown feel of the shoe. I love feeling nice and snug and comfortable. Again, with the NOVABLAST, you get a lot of room at the end. I'd say this version, not quite so much. I think in the previous versions, especially 1 and 2, just going back there, you get a good full thumb width, and I know a lot of you guys sized half down or a full size down on those versions. I'd say this version isn't quite as big and baggy as those versions. I do feel like it's slightly snugger over the top. It fits nicer, and the length on the end is more standard, I should say, maybe just shy of a full thumb width, which is absolutely perfect. I've never sized down in any of them, but I'd say this one fits a lot better. And so for that reason, I've really been using it for a lot of my easy runs and moderate runs and some of my long runs. Not too many, but mainly those easy and moderate runs. During my recent half marathon training block that I'm still in now and just starting to taper, I've been doing sort of like 70, 80, 90 minute longer runs midweek just to kind of complement what I've been doing in my training elsewhere, and they've been at an either easy, steady or steezy pace, somewhere in between those two. And again, I've pretty much gone for this. I have picked the Mizuno Neo Vista for a couple of them, but overall this has been the overriding choice, and really the reason I chose that shoe over this one was just to see if I could put a bit more miles in that shoe, and really I've not been gravitating towards it that much. This one still has to be, for me, in my rotation, the one that I'm going going for a lot. However, I will say I was pretty used to taking this thing on workouts as well, and quite happy to take it on long run workouts, and I even experimented it with its first run as a really fast, speedy workout. I'd say now with, as I mentioned, decrease in performance of the midsole, that those workouts have definitely gone out the window for me. It's not something I would consider now, and it really is sad. I kind of feel like that magic has been short-lived, so I very much have now put this into that easy, moderate category and long runs, and that is where it stayed. And just before we get into those issues, I guess we'll answer the final question, which is, will I continue to use this shoe moving forward? So the answer is yes. This is one of those shoes that I want to take as far as I can. I've kind of done it in previous NOVABLAST versions, bar the version 4. I think I got to 300 in version 3, 500 in version 2, and like just over 400 in version 1. I'd love to keep taking this one up. It's kind of one of those shoes that, as I said, I've got nothing better in my rotation at the moment, and I'll be honest with you, I am still really enjoying running it. I'm just a little bit gutted with the way that it's gone. So in terms of answering that question, yes, let's get into those issues. So number one, as I mentioned, the bounce in this midsole has definitely decreased. It's certainly not as good as it was. What I said in the beginning was you get the comfort and the softness as you land, but you get an incredible bounce back sensation, which is just classic of the NOVABLAST. And that's what I said in the first video, and I still felt it after 100 miles. I would honestly say now, hand on my heart, and I'm gutted to say it, that actually that bounce back is definitely not even half of what it was. It's still extremely soft, it's still extremely comfortable, and that's why I'm still gravitating towards it. And to be perfectly honest with you, I ran a really solid, moderate run this morning in this shoe, 75 minutes, around 600 to 700 foot of elevation, 6:39 per mile, still really good, and it rolled and it was very smooth. I still really enjoy it, but it just does not have that bounce back that it once had. So there's still a lot of cushioning in this shoe, and there's still a lot to enjoy about it. But as I mentioned, I just can't consider now taking this out for a workout. I've looked at a few of my shoes that are non-plated and gone, do you know what? I do actually fancy giving the NOVABLAST a go, and I have done that on a few occasions. I just can't really do that now. I've got better shoes for that. So yeah, it's definitely lost a little bit of magic in terms of the bounce. And when it comes to the outsole traction, I'm not gonna lie, again, I'm really gutted about that as well. I basically dropped down this hill and then hit some wet concrete at the bottom, and I honestly felt like I was wheel spinning on some occasions. I would actually liken it to the grip issues I was having in the Adidas SL2. I found the grip in that version, that shoe, to be poor, and I'm kind of starting to feel the same about this as well. To be honest with you, I train a lot out on the very buffed out fire track trails. I do a lot of my running out there, especially the easy and moderate stuff. It's much more scenic than pounding the pavement. And so grip out there is never really going to be an issue, but I have noticed, as I said, when I've hit that concrete, especially now it's winter, it's wet for most of the time here in the UK, it is getting pretty bad. So I'm just mentally making a note to take wider corners and just to be a little bit careful when I'm out there. So those are the two things that have kind of gutted me a little bit about the progression of this shoe. However, overall, it's still feeling really good, but I guess, yeah, it's not quite the same. And I know shoe technology evolves and it's always really exciting, but I often think to myself, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We saw some of the best shoes in the Nike Vaporfly version 1, and then the 2 came along and the foam was a little bit more plasticky, but it was still a really solid shoe, and then they just butchered that lineup, and I genuinely, hand on my heart, feel like Nike must have gone, do you know what, we've made an absolute world beater of a shoe here. We're going to have to dumb things down and then bring this back in a few years to make us look amazing, because literally nothing competed with that shoe for such a long period of time. And I genuinely feel like that version 1 of the Vaporfly is absolutely still up there as one of the best if you could get a fresh pair and they were still made now. I really do think that it would still compete with everything that's being made now. And I genuinely feel like the same with the midsole foam that was in the NOVABLAST version 1 and 2. That thing genuinely didn't lose bounce for such a long period of time. I got it to over 400 miles in that first version, and it was still as good as it was. Yes, it probably degraded a little bit, but overall I still had that magic from the first run right until the end. And I'll be honest with you, I know that they're evolving and trying to make things more lightweight and make things better. And when I slipped my foot into this and started running it, I was like, oh, we are back. We've got that bounce back. It's great. But the fact that it's just worn off so quickly is a little bit bit disappointing, and I do often think to myself, come on guys, if you know it was so good and it got such a good reception when it came out, why are you tinkering with it too much? There's got to be something in the formulation of the midsole foam from that previous version that you could still tap into and keep running through the DNA of this shoe, which I appreciate they're probably trying to do, but again, it's just not quite worked in the long term. So there we go, still a really solid option for me, still going to get plenty more miles, but definitely not the shoe it was. I would, of course, love to hear your thoughts on this shoe. I'm sure more of you have put more miles in it than me because I picked it up. I did get it on release date. I'm sure some of you managed to pick it up a little bit earlier because I'm sure there were small batch releases, and I'm sure some of you have gravitated towards it more than I have for more of your runs. So if you do have more than 200 miles in, that would be great to hear from you down in the comments. And if you share my thoughts on this shoe, that would be great. So we'll leave it there, guys. I'm sure there'll be a 300 mile update at some point. We'll see how it goes at that point there, but I appreciate your support. If you're interested in knowing about how more of my shoes are doing long term, then do check out this video up here. And if you want to know more about my race shoe of choice leading into the Alicante half marathon, then make sure you check out this video down here, and I'll see you guys over on one of those.